Welcome back. Today I'm going to share with you how to make a decoy wasp nest to hang in your yard to keep wasps away. Evidently, wasps are territorial, and so if they see there's another wasp nest in your yard, they won't be as apt to make their own nest there and sting you. One time we had a wasp nest in our front yard in a tree right next to the front door that we never saw, and it was this big until my husband got stung walking past it. So they can be a little bit sneaky. Some of the decoy wasps nests that I've seen, you can get patterns and crochet them. They look really good, but I'm not that fast of a crocheter knitter, and I figured out a way to make one quicker that's sort of like this, using an old sweater that's sort of wasp nest color. So here is the sweater I used. It's kind of chopped up. I was originally going to use this to make mittens with, but then decided not to. So anyway, it's real simple to do. I'm just going to go through it real quick. This one has decorations on it just to kind of give it a little bit of interest. And I actually made one for a friend who had some wasp nests in her backyard. She's got a couple apple trees and she got stung. So I made her a wasp nest, a decoy. And I decorated it. I put little, like embroidered little wasp embroidery on there. And I'll show you a picture of that real quick. Let's get started. Wasp nests are shaped a little bit like, kind of like a balloon or like a diamond shape, kind of. They're a little bit bulbous on the top and a little bit pointier on the bottom. So I'm going to cut my wool sweater that's wasp nest color and sort of get it in the shape that I want it to be in. So just imagine that if I had a wasp nest, I'm going to do kind of a big one. If it was the shape of like an upside down balloon, it's kind of wider at the top and it kind of comes around like so. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep this little seam right here, and then I'm just going to kind of cut around, and then we're going to sew it so that it looks more three-dimensional. Okay, so I'm just going to start cutting. It doesn't have to be perfect because wasp nests are not perfectly symmetrical. There. It's kind of like almost like a heart shape. So that is what I'm going to use for starters. So if you open it up, it actually does kind of look like a heart shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew, and you can do this, you could sew this by hand if you want, like just real rudimentary with like a yarn darning needle with yarn. You can just whip it around. But I'm going to use my sewing machine just because it's faster. All right, so I'm going to leave a little hole in the bottom so that I can stuff it with the fiber fill. And here we go. I'm leaving about a ½ inch from the edge just because it might fray a little bit, and I want to make sure it doesn't split open if it's hanging outside in the tree in the wind. All right, when I get about, I don't know, almost to the top rounded area, I'm going to stop. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do next. So if I just kept going around, it would be all right. It would still be the shape, sort of the shape that I want it to be for the wasp nest, but I'm going to do a little bit different so that it can I can give it a little more dimension at the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine that the widest part is about 4 inches from the top. And then I'm going to taper it inward in several spots. All right, so then I'm going to go like so. And pull it in. And so where I had my last seam, I'm going to make another little arc of sewing to meet where I just finished sewing. Okay, so now it's starting to look a little bit three-dimensional at the top. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can make some that are a little bigger and some that are a little smaller. So this one here, I'm going to start a little lower. So get your seams so that they're together like so. And this is the inside, to keep that in mind. So I'm going to start down a little farther. And you don't have to worry about taking these off because it'll just help stuff the decoy. Okay, then I'm going to do 2 more. So the top ends up kind of looking like this. Kind of a star shape. Whoops, I ran out of thread. All right, let's try this again. I just put some red thread in the bobbin. Doesn't really matter, you're not going to be able to see it that well. All right, where's the last? Here's the last one. All right, so for this one, I'm gonna start in the center and go outward. There we go. So now the top of the wasp nest looks sort of like this. And then I'm going to turn it inside out and hopefully leave a big enough hole that it's not too hard to get it turned back. Just pull it on through. There. Now you have something that looks a little bit like a really weird hat. So that's the top. It's kind of a star shape. All right. Next, we're gonna stuff it. So here we have our little decoy wasp nest. That was super simple, right? And it's not perfect. It's just kind of stitched together quickly. Now we're gonna stuff it. The best kind of stuffing is probably the polyester batting, but you can stuff it with anything. If you have like a pile of mismatched socks down in your laundry room that you want to get rid of, you could stuff those in there. Great use for leftover randomly mismatched socks. All right, so I'm gonna stuff this. Might take a while because this is a kind of a big wasp nest. Looks like a wasp nest to me. A little more in there. I'm going to stitch along the bottom just to make sure everything stays inside. There we go. Okay, so now we've got our wasp nest ready to go. We just need a way to find a way to hang it. In this particular example, I used some yarn, but for this big one, I'm going to actually use a piece of wire. So it's about maybe 15 inches long. And I'm going to take and stick it right into the top. Just poke one end of it through there, kind of grabbing some of the sweater fabric. Pull it up and twist it into place. There you go. Okay, there we have it. We have our Wasp Nest Decoy made out of an old sweater that you can hang in your yard, and hopefully will keep the bees and wasps from making nests in the trees in your yard and will keep you safe. Oops. You can also decorate your decoyed wasp nest if you want. You can get like little ribbon. This is ribbon I found at Joann's Fabrics, and it kind of looked a little like a honeycomb. So I just took and I cut it, and I took a strip and I stitched it around. I just tacked it on here and there around here. And you can also hang your wasp nest with yarn or twine or whatever you have if you don't have wire. So in the example that I showed earlier, I actually embroidered little wasps on there. If you have bee like buttons, I think you can get those at the store, at the craft store. You could stitch a couple little bees on there just for extra added character. All right, well, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed learning how to make a wasp nest decoy that you don't have to knit or crochet, and it literally only took me like 10 or 15 minutes. So, and if you don't have an old sweater, you can use any kind of fabric. Maybe you have an old like sweatshirt or something that you're gonna give to Goodwill, or if you hit the thrift store, maybe you can find a sweater that looks sort of like the color of a wasp nest, a gray color, kind of a grayish brown, that you can pick up for a couple of bucks. Then you'll have the fabric that you need to make it. All right, well, thank you again. Please make sure you like, share, comment, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.